First, you must realize that you have no idea before you can know the idea. We scan across all the frequencies if we want to learn anything new. Let us begin.
What has physics done for me lately?
Furthermore, the equation E is equal mc squared.
We have now acquired a fateful power to alter and to destroy nature.
That's like when you're in physics and you go to Dreamworld saying, oh, this is a physics excursion.
Science. What is it all about?
The whole of human history all falls in the dust of one stroke of the nail file. You can't really get to grips with evolution unless you realise what an enormous amount of time.
Our own planet is only a tiny part of the vast cosmic tapestry, a starry fabric of worlds yet untold.
You're tuned into what can only be described as the best radio station on this blue dot we call Earth. It is, of course, 4ZZZ, your community radio broadcaster. Be it on your conventional wireless radio by tuning into the classic frequency of 102.1 FM, digital devices such as DAB or smart speaker, listening via the Community Radio Plus app while you're at the gym, or streaming us live from our sensational website at 4ZZZ.org. And of course, you can always listen back to our show, or any 4ZZZ show for that matter, using the ingenious on-demand feature also found at that URL. We also now have a weekly podcast of the show for your listening pleasure, curated by Toby, a condensed version of the show without the music, which my mum prefers. Just search for our show name, which is, of course, No Idea, spelt with a K, your weekly dose of science. And joining me for this episode to speak about all things science are two of my favourite science influencers. Good morning, Issy.
Izzy. I know, it's the first time I've been early in the studio for a long time, so I understand.
Good morning, Gabrielle.
Good morning. Good unspecified space time, Max.
Yes, that's right.
Sorry,
yes.
We're on our best behaviour.
Oh, sorry, lads.
For the podcast.
Recordings.
Yeah.
You can just mull it out, maybe.
It is show number 677. Peter's not here, so I can do the show number bit at the start of the show. What I found but for the number 677, Max, is there is a gene in humans called the MTHFR gene, or MTHFR gene, that codes for an enzyme that's required for DNA repair and control.
Right.
And there's a common mutation to it on the 677th base pair in that gene that can lead to health issues and increased levels of an amino acid called homocysteine in your blood. Come on, that's pretty good.
That's very good.
Up on the show.
I got two facts about this number 677.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's the Solomon Islands country code.
Oh, yeah?
So plus 677. And if you look up the TransLink website and you look for route 677, they say this is a school service. Please contact Stuart and Sons coaches for more information.
Interesting. Are we also going to acknowledge the 6-7? No, perfect. Love that, as we should. Today's the day the 16-year-olds are off all social media, we'll keep it up like that.
So they're irrelevant now.
Yeah.
No one who ever would care about 677 is currently engaging with anything that society engages with, because they're all definitely not on social media, which I'm going to be talking about later on in the show. Yeah. I got bored this morning and I did some tests trying to sign up for new accounts on social media platforms that are currently banned for under 16-year-olds. So we'll get into some of the stuff I found there. And I've also got some science that's come out on how Zoom glitches could be changing people's lives. What do you got, Max?
I'm going to talk about aging, and there might be a silver lining, but you have to be a mouse, unfortunately. At the moment.
And I've got a story on energy drinks coming up as well, and that is a classic BMJ case, so that'll be some fun medical case study for you.
And we have part one of this. Gabrielle, hit us up.
Zoom has changed our lives a bit after COVID changed our lives a bit. But since the beginning of Zoom, it has been plagued with issues of people being on mute, of Zoom cutting out, of everything going wrong, and making life just a little bit harder for us. What's the worst Zoom issue you've ever had? My dad once walked in on me during a Zoom job interview. I think that was the worst I had in general.
Ooh.
But like, have you had any big tech issues from using Zoom?
I had, back when the messaging was just being released, we used Teams in school, but I was a climate organizer and we used Zoom. And I remember I was moderating a Zoom call for about like a climate speak or whatever. And someone DM'd me instead of a moderator saying like, I can hear her clicking on her keyboard. Can you tell her to stop or something like that? And it was direct messaged to me instead of anyone. So I remember when that first came out and I was like, I never want to do that ever again. So I'm super conscious whenever I'm in a Zoom meeting.
Yep. A new study has looked into how Zoom issues could be impacting people's lives in a pretty serious way, beyond the embarrassment, beyond the just annoyance of it, actually having big impacts on people's lives. So this was all done in the US and it was led out of Columbia University. Do we have a QS ranking?
25?
35.
38, is he?
Oh, nice. Bang on.
They analysed nearly 8,000 different versions of a video call. It wasn't just Zoom, it included recorded job interviews, replicated healthcare advice, real-world parole hearings. It was a lot of different situations that were meant to either be or replicate a video call like you'd find through Zoom. And they also had, for the parole hearings, they had written transcripts of the actual video calls that they then tried to retroactively look into the transcripts for mentions of glitches and, whatever happening, freezes or whatever. So what they found is that for some types of calls, like meet and greets, a sunscreen telehealth info session, there were very small impacts from the glitches. And they also found when they surveyed people that people said, no, that we have glitches, but it doesn't impact what we do, It's not a big deal. But then they did some of these job interviews. So they'd play people a mock job interview as if they were sitting in the meeting, not participating, but like just being there and listening. And then they'd ask them, how interested are you in hiring this interviewee? And when they put glitches into that mock Zoom job interview, there was a 10% lower interest in hiring that interviewee.
Ooh.
That's brilliant.
When they put made it like a mock health coach video call and they asked people, would you like to continue working with this health coach? They said 77% of people said yes without glitches, 61% of people said yes when the glitches were put in. And the big one, when they had looked through those real-world parole hearings, glitches were present. They determined glitches were present in a third of those video calls, and they suggested it reduced parole being granted from a likelihood of 68% down to 48%.
Whoa.
That's significant.
That was the association. Now, there could be other factors at play there, because it's just a correlation that we're looking at here. But that's a big drop. It's a 20%, down 20% of people. So obviously that could have huge life consequences for a lot of people just from a simple Zoom glitch. And there's a possibility that you could explain away some of that in terms like the job interview one. Well, maybe someone who's less capable for the job would have more Zoom glitches, be less well set up, or something like that. You could, there's lots of other factors that could go into this, but of course there's a key thing to look at, that there could be exacerbating factors that lead to more Zoom glitches, like digital equality, people having access to good internet, people being able to afford good internet, and all that sort of stuff going into it could actually be compounding these already the lack of privilege or lack of access to these things, and vice versa. People who already have these sorts of things could have less of that impediment in front of them. They looked into a bunch of reasons about why this might be happening. Like why would a Zoom glitch lead to someone potentially being less likely to be hired for a job, potentially less likely to be granted parole? And they looked at a couple of different factors, and they found they all had varying levels of importance. It was like, comprehension is a pretty simple one that they looked at. There's just the simple disruption of it. But the authors are really hooked onto this idea of the paper, were really hooked onto this idea of uncanniness, like the uncanny valley almost being triggered. It's this idea that, in robotics, when you see something that's not at all human, you're okay with it. When you see something that's human, you're okay with it. When you see something that's close to human but definitely not, you're not okay with it. It's that uncanniness. They're saying potentially there's this effect where, because a video call is our best effort at replicating a face-to-face interaction, which is so key to how humans interact socially and have evolved to interact, but when you break that up, it could be triggering some level of that uncanniness, that could trigger some sort of stuff in our brains.
It sort of breaks the stream of thought.
Exactly, in a way that, like when you're interacting with someone, they're never going to freeze in person. They're never going to suddenly disappear into blackness in person or, like anything like that. So they had a look and they ran a lot of stats on this and found that there was that link in uncanniness being sort of associated with the ones that had that big drop in stuff like hiring intent or the one about the health coach and that sort of stuff. They think that it could be uncanniness as well as a bunch of other stuff that's linked to this. But in general, they found that, this idea that people had in the qualitative studies that, we have glitches, it's no big deal, isn't what the data showed. It's one of these things which is so important. It shows why it's so important to test common sense, because we don't really think that the Zoom glitch is having much of an impact. But they found that these really major consequences in people's lives could be triggered just from a simple Zoom glitch. And that's what I got.
Brilliant.
That's really interesting.
Should we read out the what Chris spoke about?
Oh, yes. Because it's our 677 episode. And, of course, we're trying not to avoid the elephant in the room. But Chris said South Park 6-7 parody will live on. And I commented, yes, very, very funny. South Park has always, hit the nail on the head. And with no more 16-year-olds on social media, hopefully we can let 6-7 die.
Hey, fellas! You want to know what time I woke up this morning?
What time?
Around 6-7.
6-7.
Tuning in to 4ZZZ and the show with no idea with me, Max. We've got Issy, we've got Gabe, and we've got part 2 of this. As I continue my fight against becoming old, I am encouraged of late after reading some new longevity research. This research, led by Cameron Cato, reveals that combining oxytocin with an ALK5 inhibitor greatly improves both lifespan and overall health in frail, elderly male mice.
Well, you've got most of that, Max.
I was going to say, 2 out of 3.
Cato's team used a 2-part treatment designed to address major biological changes that occur with age. Oxytocin, a hormone known to support tissue repair, which naturally declines over time, was paired with an ALK5 inhibitor that blocks the TGF-beta pathway. And TGF-beta activity tends to increase in older tissues and is linked to inflammation and cellular damage. In this research, frail mice aged 25 months, which is roughly equivalent to 75 human years, received a regular dose of the oxytocin ALK5 inhibitor combination. Male mice treated with this combination lived more than 70% longer than untreated mice and showed marked improvements in agility, endurance, and memory.
70%?
Yes.
Wow.
Pretty major, isn't it? So I might be around for the 100th birthday of 4ZZZ after all. Hazard ratio analysis, that is the probability of imminent death, indicated that treated males were nearly 3 times less likely to die at any moment compared to untreated controls. The treatment also restored a more youthful pattern in the way blood proteins circulated by reducing what is termed biological noise, a recognised indicator of ageing. Although both males and females experienced short-term improvements, only the males maintained long-term gains in systematic protein balance after 4 months of continuous therapy. Female mice showed no major improvements in lifespan or sustained health, although middle-aged females did experience increased MILF action, meaning mice are like to fertilise.
Oh my God.
I thought I misheard it. It was even worse.
They had increased fertility, apparently. The study's outcomes highlight how sex-specific biology can influence the effectiveness of aging interventions. The exact reasons behind these differences are still unclear, yet the study establishes a useful model for understanding how therapies may work differently across sexes. Oxytocin already has FDA approval, and ALK5 inhibitors are being evaluated in clinical trials, which raises the possibility that this combined approach could one day be adapted for use in humans. Job done.
Unbelievable, Max.
Incredible. How do we get this show renewed?
Everyone at the station knows which show's the most appreciated. It's obviously this one. Uncancelable. That's what I love to say about us. Everything we do, everything we say, everything we've ever put online, uncancelable.
Yeah. Tune into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea, your weekly dose of science with me, Max. Okay, we've got Issy. What do you got first, Issy?
Welcome back to my medical segment called The Horrors of the British Medical Journal. This is the journal that has given us the man who gave himself, what's the pirate disease of not eating fruit? Scurvy, and also the hairy tongue. So get ready for another one, folks. This one might seem a little obvious, but for this poor gentleman, it was not. This was coming from Nottingham University Hospitals, the NHS Trust. Can I get a QS ranking for Nottingham University, please?
120.
Oh, 280.
Oh, close, Max. 97.
Oh.
Wow.
A man in his 50s who was normally fit and well had an ischemic thalamatic stroke confirmed on an MRI, which manifested in left side weakness, numbness, and ataxia, which is an impairment of voluntary muscle movement. His admission blood pressure was 254 over 150, which is incredibly high, but all tests for secondary hypertension was normal. After 72 hours in the inpatient, starting antihypertensives reduced the BP to 170. However, after discharge, his blood pressure rose again and remained persistently high despite antihypertensions of 5 different medications being used. Upon further questioning, the patient revealed an average daily consumption of 8 cans of energy drinks, each containing about 160 milligrams of caffeine, a habit that has been not specifically asked about during admission. The daily intake of about 1,200 to 1,300 milligrams of caffeine is very high, much higher than the recommended maximum daily of 400.
Right.
So on ceasing this consumption, his BP was normalized and hypertensives were successfully withdrawn, but he didn't regain full feeling on the left side of his body.
From the stroke, yeah.
Yes. The subject said he wasn't aware of the dangers of drinking energy drinks causing to him being left with numbness in his left hand, side, hands, fingers, foot, and toes after 8 years of energy drink consumption. So what can we learn from this? This is an individual case, so whilst we can't really talk about too much of the application to population, I think it is a very interesting case on whether energy drink consumption can be a risk factor for stroke and cardiovascular disease, and the importance of targeted questioning in clinical practices as well. Plus, public awareness. This happened in the UK, which have ceased selling energy drinks to under 16s. So this is quite interesting that this has happened to an older individual. The researchers also stated that the declared amount of pure caffeine in energy drinks is only one form of caffeine. Other ingredients include hidden caffeine. For example, guarana, which is a type of common ingredient, is thought to contain caffeine at twice the concentration of a coffee bean. So the hypothesis is that the intersection of these other ingredients, including guarana, ginseng, potentiates the effects of caffeine heightened strokes through various mechanisms. But yes, very interesting interesting case studies to come out of the BMJ. And also, I understand finals is over, thank God. Uni students finally get freedom, but I have seen a few people who were posting multiple cans of energy drinks. So definitely keep an eye on the habit, especially as it gets hotter as well. Caffeine and heat do not mix well. So yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting study.
for reference, a shot of espresso has a little under 100 milligrams of caffeine
about
in it usually.
80 milligrams. I think black tea is 40 milligrams. Green tea is 30 milligrams, I believe. And then, of course, matcha is a whole separate thing where that one is concentrated green tea. So that has, I think, somewhere between black coffee and black tea. So
8 energy drinks a day is like 16 shots of espresso.
Yes.
Plus all of the hidden stuff and all of the other ingredients in those cans.
So this is quite an extreme case.
Extreme. And it should be said, I don't think there is any health advice I'd seen in Australia that you should avoid caffeine unless you're in certain circumstances. Like I think pregnancy, there might be some warnings on, and certain medications, obviously. So always consult with a GP on that. But yeah, in general, caffeine is like if you have a coffee a day, this is not on par with this. It's such a different level of caffeine consumption.
What a legend.
As Dr. Carl says, everything's a poison. What matters is the dose. And that is a very high dose.
Yes. And Mr. Thalen texted in and said, we've had 2 different guys leave work part way through the day because they had too many energy drinks and developed the shakes.
No way.
And I mean,
I thought the end of that text was going to finish very differently because that is also a side effect of excessive caffeine consumption.
Sure, yeah.
Can you tell I had a coffee this morning?
Yeah.
Just keep an eye out. Keep just everything in moderation.
I remember back in the day when I took my son in for an EB launch. It was the midnight launch of Call of Duty, something like that. And so you buy the game for whatever, $100 and they give you a free pack of energy drinks. So you can stay awake because it's midnight to play the game. And he would have been like 14 years old or something.
Oh, God.
Yikes.
Straight through the system.
Straight into that pathway, isn't it? Are you much of a gamer, Peta?
I'm such a gamer. I'm really good at The Sims, and I was really good at Club Penguin.
Yep. I remember handing you a remote to Red Dead Redemption 2 so you could ride the horse around for a bit once.
Just to say, I told you I'd be bad. I told you at the time that it wasn't going to work.
Within about 30 seconds, you were just in a nice little town, safe town, but in about 30 seconds, you'd fallen off the horse and shot at a priest.
You tune into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea with me, Max. We've got Issy, we've got Gabe. Unfortunately, we don't have our friendly neighbourhood marine scientist here this week. We'll hit the intro. Gabe, you can cringe, and then we'll get into it.
Do you know what tuna is?
Fish.
It's fish!
Thank God someone's working on this. I don't know what I'd do without it.
Fish are friends, not food.
Great start. Gabe, what does a cat say?
Yeah?
Max, what does a chicken say?
Cluck, cluck.
And Izzy, what does a shark say? All right, what do you guys think of when you think of sea cucumbers?
Sea cucumbers. Big, floppy loaves of bread on the sandy floor.
Look a bit like a bladeless wind turbine.
That squirt.
They do.
We were trying to be subtle, Max. Yes.
They look a little bit like a bladeless wind turbine, or they have a similar idea.
And various shapes and sizes.
They've got loads of them.
Like a lot of the bladeless wind turbines you could buy online.
Yeah.
You can get long, skinny sea cucumbers. You can get short, skinny sea cucumbers. You can get big, bumpy sea cucumbers.
Yeah.
All varieties.
Look, many varieties. One of my favourite ones, just for reference, is one called the pineapple sea cucumber because it's got these like little pineapple-y sort of like bumps on it, and it's one of the few ones that you can actually pick up, and it doesn't have like a depressurization issue, and so you could pick it up and show it to tourists.
Right.
And they would be fine with that.
Vacuums of the sea, they're called by some people, right?
They are called that. When I think of sea cucumbers, I think of one sea cucumber called Herman, because there was this one guy who was doing his PhD on them, and his PhD was just following them around to see how much they pooped. And he predictably went crazy because he'd been doing that for hours on end, weeks on end, months on end, just following sea cucumbers around in the ocean. And so he named his Herman, did a fake interview, and then posted it to YouTube. It's just it was a really nice way of warning us about the perils of science, namely losing your mind. But sea cucumbers are best known as soft, squishy, bladeless wind turbine-shaped creatures that clean the ocean floor by recycling nutrients. Essentially, they're butt in motion. Just how good is their butt? Their butt makes the ocean go round. But researchers at the University of Mississippi, QS ranking.
Okay. I know they're in America, so we can't use the bias, can we now?
Yeah, get rid of that bias.
330.
450.
80.
851 to 900. And that's good for them because last year they were in the thousands.
Hey!
Yay! Go University of Mississippi. But they have found out that some sea cucumbers may also hold a powerful secret weapon against cancer. So sea cucumbers could be useful for more than just their butt. Yay! From what I can tell, these researchers were just generally looking at proteins and compounds produced by sea cucumbers. Like, they didn't say, like, oh, we saw the sea cucumbers could do this and we wanted to know how they did it. They just sort of leapt in with what exactly this one compound of the sea cucumber can do. So I think they were just playing around with sea cucumbers because one of the researchers was like, oh, yeah, things in the ocean, there's loads of compounds that we just have no idea about. They're also looking at corals and all sorts of things for lots of compounds, mainly for medicine, which is a thing we've been doing forever. Like, we haven't exhausted plants by any means, but we've looked at a lot of plants, and so now they're like, 70% of the world is ocean. I bet there's a bunch of really cool compounds in there. And that's sort of where we're at. But primarily, they found that one compound from this one sea cucumber could inhibit what is known as SOLF2. So what is SOLF2? Let's step back a bit here. Every cell in the human body is covered in structures called glycans, which are complex sugars that sort of look apparently like little hairs, which I didn't know this, but apparently lots of our cells are covered in little hairy things that are made out of sugars that help with communication, immune response, and recognizing threats. So they're sort of like a communication system between cells. Cancer cells, however, manipulate enzymes like SOLF2, so it's just an enzyme, to change this glycan forest that's our cells, helping them evade detection and grow unchecked. So cancer does this thing to this one enzyme called SOLF2 that helps them grow. However, this compound from the sea cucumber they think inhibit SOLF2, which essentially they think what will happen is that it stops the glycan reprogramming and effectively slows or blocks cancer's ability to spread, which would be huge, right? Like, this is up in the realms of, quote, cure for cancer. Huge, huge, huge deal. So how did they figure this out? Essentially, they found this compound, and then they were like, we think this might have this inhibiting factor. So they did a computer simulation, which is, I think they have the structure of the compound and the structure of the enzyme, because they're just molecules at the end of the day, and saw how they interacted. And then they had a lab-based experiment to test the effects of the actual sugar compound called fucosylated chondroitin sulfate, which is the one that they took from the sea cucumber. It's just the sea cucumber just looks like a sea cucumber. Like, you wouldn't be able to go down, like, poke your head underwater and be like, that's the one, that's the fancy sea cucumber. It's a sea cucumber. And their approach included, like, they sort of did this molecular modeling to see how it interacts. Then they did it in a lab, and they kind of went like, okay, both of these things are consistent across the computer and in real life. And they found that, yes, this, hang on, fucosylated chondroitin sulfate, really, that's the second one's really getting me there. Chondroitin. Fucosylated chondroitin sulfate can inhibit SOLF2. Ding, tick, done. They think, they're very confident that this could prevent the spread of cancer. And they're excited because, unlike other drugs that target similar enzymes like SOLF2, so we already have drugs out there for, like, cancer drugs that are already doing this sort of mechanism, but those drugs interfere with blood clotting, which is a common side effect with many cancer medications, which is very dangerous and causes a lot of pain for cancer patients. And so they think that this doesn't do that. So they're hoping that it would be a really good drug, that it would have very few side effects. It's derived from marine life, which means that it avoids some of the risks involved in sourcing similar drugs from animals like pigs, which apparently they have, like, potential for viral transmission and all these complicated things. So they think having it from a sea cucumber might sort of circumvent all of those issues. But then we come to the sort of big issue. So while this one is not carbohydrate based, so it would be sort of easy to synthesize, they haven't synthesized it yet. It needs to be synthesized because otherwise you have to go around plucking sea cucumbers out of the sea and getting this one compound out of them, which obviously is not sustainable. Like, in any way, there's not enough sea cucumbers in the sea to do it. So they think that if they can synthesize this molecule, which they believe is possible and not too difficult, they should be able to create large enough quantities for testing, moving forward into animal models and eventually human trials. Now, obviously, this is still a long way off being anything resembling medicine, but it is a really cool thing that they've found in a sea cucumber. It's yet another example of the ocean providing really cool medicine. And yeah, it's something to keep our eyes on in the background.
You tuned into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea with me, Max. Issy, what do you got for us, Gabe?
Anthony texted in, no Peta this week. Let me guess, hitting a golf course somewhere. She will love that. Love that. Absolutely loathes golf.
Yes.
Fantastic. We've sent it to her, Anthony. We'll see what she says. We're talking a little later in the show. I've got some stuff on the social media ban, how it's going to actually work. Supposed to work, and some tests I ran trying to log into different accounts this morning, day one of the ban. But before we get into that, we'll get into that a little later, Max.
Yeah.
And because I was looking through the list of what's banned, and it's Reddit and Twitter or X and Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Yeah. You know what's not on there?
No.
What? Community radio, Max. Community radio is nowhere near that list because community radio could never do anything wrong, could it?
It never.
Keeps on chucking on.
This show is an example, shining a beacon of light. Of quality.
And ultra relevant to the under 16 community.
Yes.
As we explain to Max off air what 6-7 means. In December of 2025. But we only can keep running. Unlike the Metas of the world, we're not pulling in billions upon billions of stacks in ad money, and we rely on the subscriptions to keep this station going and keep us on air. So it's a bit of the show where we ask you to give it check it out. If you aren't a subscriber already, like Anthony and everyone else texting in, whose names we know.
We did.
What are the options, Max?
Well, if you go to our website at 4zzz.org.au/support, there's a myriad of tiers that you can subscribe to. If you're under 18, it's $25. If you have a pet and you want to subscribe them, it's $25. Concession or large language models that we worked out last week, $40. Full is $80, passionate is $140, and a super sub, you get your name written downstairs in gold ink for $500. There is a prize this week, Issy.
There is. I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, okay.
Here's something I prepared earlier. Not appropriate for our under 16s, sorry, or our under 18s, but our December prize is from the N Bar in West End, who provides cocktails, natural wines, and craft beer options. A generous subscriber prize of $250 to use at your pleasure for good times and great drinks in their house natural wine store as well. So when you subscribe during the month of December, you'll go into the running for that.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I remember having to teach you what Riz was on air. Yeah. I think there's a sting of it somewhere.
And you had to tell me what Skippity thing was.
I had to. Oh my God. Thank you, Ian, for creating me having to tell Max what Skibbity Toilet is as a grown adult. I am yet to show you an episode of it,
yes,
and I'm scared to, but it is in that brain rot category.
You tune into 4ZZZ. Show is No Idea with me, Max. We've got Issy, we've got Maximillian, we got Gabe, and we've got
Okay, it's time for the best part of the show. Loosely defined as science, yeah, you already know. Everybody listens to 4ZZZ just to hear us talking about what Butters just did. Subscriptions just keep rolling like the tires on a car. But something tells me that our science curves won't go far. But unlike an engine, I won't keep you in suspension. We're all here to hear him talk, so let's give him attention. You're not ready for when he starts rapping. Gonna hand the mic to Max, and I'm not talking Van Stappen.
F1 happened on the weekend. It was the final race of the year.
Not sure what happened.
And it was an Abu Dhabi. And it was a three-way battle to see who would become crowned Formula One's drivers' champion for 2025.
Everything was ready, wasn't it? It was set up for the blockbuster.
It was. Current number one, Max Verstappen, took an early race lead.
Having put it on pole.
True, yeah. After Verstappen pitted, Aussie Oscar Piastri briefly took the race lead, only to be overtaken by Verstappen with fresher tyres.
Can we just say that move that Piastri pulled on Lando
on the first lap, turn
was
6.
very nice.
It was very nice. And I think Lando just let him have it because, as we know, before the race started, Lando Norris only needed to finish on the podium, which means top 3.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be assured to be world champion. And this is exactly what the Englishman assumed his position throughout the race. There were some brief skirmishes with Lando and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc.
Mm-hmm.
But
Leclerc was pushing
He was.
like crazy.
But I think Lando's McLaren was more than up for the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Max Verstappen said, like, if I was driving one of those McLarens, I would have already won the championship
I know.
halfway through the year. So that's how good the car is. So anyway, Oscar Piastri came home in second. Max Verstappen won the race. And newly crowned world champion Lando Norris came in third. Job done.
Yeah, I think with the top 3 there. Sorry, Izzy, but the top 3 there, we can't say that any of them didn't deserve to win the championship this year.
Yeah.
Like, I think they were all pretty evenly matched. They all had a few things not go their way. They all got a bit of luck as well. Like, because if we think about Lando, like, we thought he was out after Zandvoort when he had the power unit failure.
Yeah.
You know, and then we have, Verstappen seeing red in Spain. Like, if he hadn't done that, he would be world champion. If Piastri hadn't gone off in Australia, he'd be world champion.
Or Baku, or whatever.
Whatever Baku was.
Just get
Well
some
done,
points
Baku.
during Baku, though. There was 0 points over that whole weekend, and it was a sprint weekend. So,
There was a real hero's journey for all of them. All 3 of them had their own narrative. I was just thinking the Drive to Survive season is going to go so hard because all of them had their ups and downs.
Yeah.
But yes, it ushers in a new era of Lando Norris with the number 1 number now.
He's declared that he's going to use that number. So Max Verstappen will have to go. He'd have to go back to number 33 anyway. But it's going to be a sad day at the Red Bull factory when they have to pull the number 1 off the car.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Gabe, what did you think?
Can I be honest? It was set up to be a blockbuster, that final race. I genuinely fell asleep and woke up with Lando Norris doing his interviews. Because, to be fair, there was discussion of all these strategies that Max Verstappen could try and use because he was the closest to try and snatching the win for World Drivers' Champion.
Yes.
And in terms of like maybe backing stuff up and making it harder for the McLarens. But then the McLaren, the 2 drivers, Lando Norris, the Brit who won, and Oscar Piastri, the Aussie, they did different strategies with their tyre choices, which kind of seems to have neutralised the choice there and just sort of made it a bit of a dead rubber in the end. For as long as nothing crazy happened, it wasn't really going to go anywhere.
That's right.
Which was sucked to see because we've had some fun stuff happen at the last race of an F1 race, but F1 season. But still, very cool. A very good season overall, even if the last race ended in a bit of a.
And this is the end of an era for these cars.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows you how well they've been engineered because all 20 cars started the race, all 20 cars finished the race. There were no safety cars. Everyone's just driving nicely now.
And I believe it hit some record for how close the top couple were in qualifying as well.
Right.
In the terms of you could sort of have a second between the top car and I think the 18th car or something. Like, it was just so close in the qualifying, and in even though there was a dominant constructor this year in McLaren, they were very close. So big reset, which I'm sure we'll get into in the next few weeks in the off season.
Yeah.
But the big one is that DRS is gone, isn't it?
Yes.
So that's the last, that little flap on the back they open up on some of the straights, which was effectively an air brake that all the other cars have to have on.
Yeah. Totally.
And then you could open the brake, get rid of the brake if you were within 1 second of the car in front to help with passing, because the messy, dirty air behind the cars made it very hard to pass. So they've gotten rid of that, and it's being replaced with a push-to-pass battery boost, effectively.
Yes.
And it'll be a different distance back at each track. And it'll be something you can deploy whenever you want around the track, not just on the straights. So we'll see if we had the last pass of the DRS by Lance Stroll in Abu Dhabi over the weekend, and we'll see how much we missed the DRS the seasons to come.
Was it Lance Stroll who did the last DRS?
Yeah, that's what I saw.
I thought it was Kimi.
The last overtake. Yeah,
oh, the last
Kimi
overtake.
Hit
the button. That makes sense. I was going to say, I did see some footage of Oscar Piastri doing some testing. I said it was his last day in the office, and everyone was like, seems like he is dragging his feet before the summer season for aerodynamic testing, sorry. So they're already in there testing the new tyre compounds as well.
Yeah, it's a smaller tyre too.
Smaller tyre.
Yeah.
And they've got movable aero, some of the teams, for 26 as well.
This is what
so they're testing those on some mule cars, basically, like 25 mocked up to be more like 26. So,
and
very exciting.
Pete texted in, "G'day, legends. A special shout out to the Oscar Piastri conspiracy theorists who had proven to be far more entertaining than the actual racing. I am looking forward to seeing these new cars with moving front and rear winglets instead of the DRS. Sounds cool." So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see who gets on it. There's talk about Mercedes having the best power unit developed for the next season and all this sort of stuff. But we'll just have to wait. They're testing at the moment, as we said. And when's the first when they hit the track on Anger? Don't know. February, March, probably.
Yeah. I was having a quick look because they are going to the new stuff for next year. I was having a look at the what it means for stuff like wind tunnel time, because it's going to be huge, and they do it in Formula One where the worse you finish, the more wind tunnel time you're allowed. So it'll be interesting to see in the 2024 allocations. I don't know if they've released the ones for going into next year, what they were this year, but it was like 280 hours for the top finisher and 460 hours for the bottom finishing team. So, what is that, 1.7 times or 1.8 times, something like it's a lot more time. So it'd be interesting to see what happens next year if that boost helps the bottom teams improve, particularly Alpine, the Renault-backed team.
When McLaren's Oscar Piastri was on form, No Idea used to play a bit of this. And then we got to thinking, why not call it the No Idea trophy for how many times the national anthem would be played on No Idea?
We could have come up with a better name, I think. I don't know.
Anyway, the inaugural award happens to go to Gabriel, who correctly guessed how many times the Australian national anthem would be played this year. No idea. So, Gabe correctly guessed the number 8, while the rest of us, Maxie chose 9, Issy, you chose 10, and I went long. I went 12. So, congratulations to the master. I think we have to get a trophy off.
I'll take the claps. I'll take the trophy. I'll take it all. It won't happen again.
F2 is also finished for the year, but the actual winner of the championship was decided last week in Qatar. It was Leonardo, a former Rolly, is it? Yeah.
You nailed it.
Really?
Yep, former Rolly.
And he becomes the 5th champion in FIA Formula 2 era to win the FIA F3 and F2 titles in successive years, following Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Oscar Piastri, and the previous year's champion, Gabriele Bortoleto.
Cool.
And finally, it's back, Gabe. You're not going to believe this. It's the 77 report.
Oh.
Finally, he is back in racing for the newest team on the F1 grid, Cadillac. And I'm not talking about Sergio Perez. I'm talking about the sauna-loving, naked calendar ambassador and honorary Australian, Valtteri Bottas. After serving out his role as Mercedes' 3rd driver, Valtteri can now speak freely. I'm excited to be starting as a Cadillac Formula One team driver, finally. This is a proud moment in my career as it marks the beginning of a new chapter back on the grid with a team that's starting its journey in the sport. There's a lot of hard work that lies ahead, so I'm keen to use my experience to help the team now that I'm fully on board. Seeing everything coming together for the first time as a brand new team is special and makes you realise the momentum of the project. So, job
Good
done.
stuff. Yeah, 22 cars on the road next year.
Yeah.
11 teams.
Yeah, first time since, 2016?
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Any
To
more?
answer your question, Max, the testing for the next year starts on the 11th of February in Sakia, and the first race is, of course, the Aussie GP in Melbourne on the 6th to the 8th of March.
And they're doing some testing in Barcelona. I know that too. They've got 2 test sessions, so that might happen late January.
I believe that's a private test.
Is that a private
Barcelona
test?
one.
How did you get that information, Max?
Okay, we'll get back.
One more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing. We'd be remiss not to mention that Dr. Helmut Marko, a bit of a divisive figure in the paddock, has now left Red Bull after 20 years with the team. He's effectively their talent scout, brought through people like Sebastian Vettel, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz Jr., and of course Max Verstappen. So
that's like 4 people who executives who had now left Red Bull. So it's going to be a different Red Bull next year.
Yeah, clean sweep, isn't it? Really, we've lost Newey, Horner, now Marko.
Exactly, and the guy that went to McLaren, the aerodynamicist guy. Anyway.
Yeah, and also Jonathan Wheatley over to Audi.
So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I'm excited for next year. Okay, we can talk more about it next week.
Your predictions in the past, Max, how accurate have those been?
Not so good. No.
So that's right, everyone. Take this.
Maybe I shouldn't play this
bucket
now.
of salt.
What do you got for us, Gabe?
Well, Max, I feel like there might be quite a few teens in Australia hoping to get a bit older quite soon because today is day 1 of the much talked about social media ban. So I thought we'd just dig into what it is, how it might play out, and just some of the logistics of how realistic it is to work in terms of getting, under 16s off social media and how people might get around it. And let's just dig into this. But now I want to start off just by running through what the ban is. So this is just based off the E-Safety Commissioner's info, who is behind it. The legislation passed through the 2 houses of federal government of Australian Parliament earlier this year, and the E-Safety Commissioner is the one on behalf of the government doing the enactment of it, I guess. So from today, there are bans on Facebook, Instagram, Kik, Reddit, Snapchat, Threads, TikTok, Twitch, X, and YouTube. That is the full list, who have to, quote, take reasonable steps to prevent Australians under 16 from having accounts on their platform. So there's some interesting wordsmithing in that. That's the key top line thing. So the last bit, having accounts, means for a start, under 16s are still completely allowed to view any of those apps while not logged in, and it's also just needing to take reasonable steps, not complete and utter can't have a single under 16-year-old on your platform. There's bans up to 49.5 million for any of the platforms caught not taking reasonable steps to have under 16 accounts removed or paused or otherwise dealt with, and there are no repercussions for the under 16-year-olds yourselves or parents of under 16-year-olds or guardians of under 16-year-olds for not taking reasonable steps. There is only onus that reasonable steps is only being placed on the companies behind those social media platforms. So for people who are in that under 16 bracket, you could potentially lose accounts depending on how the platform wants to handle it. You're probably already very aware of this, but if you want to, there's recommendations to think about downloading data if it's got stuff you want. If your Instagram's got stuff that you want to keep, pictures that you might not have elsewhere, it's a good time to do a download if you still do have access. And if not, some of the platforms might be giving people a way to just keep their account on pause until they do hit 16. And then as soon as you hit 16, you're allowed to use it again. There is the Australian, in terms of the proof of ID stuff, there's been a lot. This has been the big thing, right? Like, how do you prove someone's under 16? So the government ID, like a driver's license for people who are over 16, or a passport or a birth certificate would be the most likely for people who are under 16. That is allowed under the E-Safety Commissioner guidelines. It's allowed to be a thing that the social media platforms can use to do a proof of ID, but they can't use it as the only mean. They have to provide an alternative as well. So if you're concerned about that, they have to provide you an alternative way of proving age. What that is kind of up to the social media company. A lot of them are using the AI face recognition stuff to try and give it a go. But yeah, they have to offer alternatives to government-issued ID to do the proof of age stuff, but do keep an eye out for that any pushy consent. They might try and push that as a way of or push marketing consent through, which they're also not allowed to do. So just be careful if you are using government ID, if that is what you fall back to. You have to be able to, one, you have to be given alternatives, and two, even if you use it, they have to be able to let you opt out of that being used for marketing purposes for anything other than the age verification. So keep an eye out for that sort of stuff, and keep an eye out, regardless if you're under or over 16, keep an eye out for scams coming out around the verification and anything that might be related to it.
Okay.
Be it, false claims for IDs, or parents being hit with like fake things of verify your kid's account, just upload this thing into here, all of that. Just it's a new avenue for scams to come through. But let's get into the juicy stuff, the avoiding the ban and how it might actually play out, because like I said, it's that list that is banned of Facebook, Instagram, Kik, Reddit, Snapchat, Threads, TikTok, Twitch, X and YouTube. Things that are not banned are Discord, GitHub. These are deliberately not banned, like they considered these.
I thought GitHub was. Okay.
No, Discord, GitHub, Google Classroom, Lego Play, Messenger, Pinterest, Roblox, Steam and Steam Chat, WhatsApp and YouTube Kids. So those have deliberately not been banned and are still open to under 16s. And then there are the things that aren't on the list, like Yope, RedNote, Lemonade. If you have a look at the App Store or the Android Store at the moment, you will find the top two are taken by Lemonade and Yope, which are listed, I think, technically as lifestyle apps on the App Store at least. The government has put out statements saying they're considering what to do with them. But if you don't know, Lemonade is TikTok owned. It's an Instagram clone effectively, and Yope is a third party, I believe. I don't think it's owned by any of the major social media giants, but it's a Snapchat clone. So they're out there and they're doing numbers in the charts at the moment. And if you have a scroll through those platforms, there's all sorts of joking and stuff going on about, is this the new one? RedNote is an interesting one. It's a Chinese based Chinese-owned social media app. It was the one that a lot of Americans flocked to in that very brief flirtation they had with the TikTok ban.
Yes.
And then, so it's a TikTok clone. And then, it's an interesting one. It's called RedNote. Its Chinese name directly translates to Little Red Book. RedNote comes from Little Red Book, as in, that Little Red Book. So there's all sorts of stuff then about how people might be getting around it. So there's already heaps of stories of people using friends, family, whoever, just to do a fake photo ID of their age.
Especially with Christmas coming up. So all your cousins or whatever, your older cousin. Job done.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like, and obviously we're not going to condone this publicly, but it feels like the modern interpretation of an older sibling going and buying new alcohol when they're 17 or something. And now they do that. They put their face into your Facebook for you to get you access. And it's only got to take reasonable steps. So it feels like, and this is just my opinion of how this might play out, but it feels like they're going to err on the side of probably setting these things, because they're going to be a margin of error in how these AI age checks of photos and the face IDs can be done. That they're going to err on the side of trying to check a 15-year-old or 16 rather than trying to check a 17-year-old or 16, like in their models, because pissing off an 18-year-old user by picking them up as a 16-year-old is not good for their business. But also, you could argue, if it comes down to it, that they have taken reasonable steps, but a 15-year-old was allowed to have an account because there's a margin of error. They took reasonable, that's still potentially reasonable steps under these guidelines of what has to be done by the social media companies. Then there's the whole discussion of VPNs, virtual private networks that make you appear like you're somewhere else. So probably could be used to get around these social media bans. You could potentially use other things, cotton onto IP addresses and other things that can give away your location, but Yeah, I don't know. It feels like a VPN is a pretty easy workaround, and increasingly being used by a lot of people. It makes your device appear like it's somewhere else.
Yeah.
So you could just say I'm in New Zealand, and they don't have a ban. So that's it. Meta or whoever's running the social media service is not. If they think you're in New Zealand, they're not going to put an Australian ban on you. So there's the VPN issue, and then there's all sorts of other stuff that could be done to bypass the restrictions. What it comes down to, though, I think is I don't think there's much more that could be done than this, than to leave these workarounds without making it reliant on a government ID being issued or some other really stringent verification method, which I don't think anyone's ready for or wants at the moment. So this feels like if you're supportive of the ban of under 16-year-olds not being on social media, this seems like the best option at the moment. Even though it does have all of these huge cracks, it does at least make it harder for under 16-year-olds to have an account on social media. But like I mentioned, you can get around it, and you can still scroll. Like most of these accounts, to go on Reddit, to go on X, formerly Twitter, to go on YouTube even.
You don't have to be logged in.
Account.
No.
You don't need an account to get the user experience out of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of these probably are going to be, and they often will still collect some information about the device, like they'll store some info about the device and still do curated feeds in some level, even if you're not logged in, just based on the device's history. I'm sure you've experienced this the first time you open YouTube on a new device, you start clicking on stuff, and even if you're not logged in, it will still start feeding you things. So how that will play out, who knows? Maybe just accountless use will be more and more common for under 16s. So that's all of that. But what I also did this morning was do some tests because it was day one. I'm like, all right, let's see what's set up.
Yes.
So I tried to do this in as a fair way as possible. I downloaded Firefox for the first time on my laptop, which is only a few years old. Ran it in private mode, so incognito mode, so it doesn't collect the browsing history, and then just tried to make some accounts. And I tried to make accounts with the birth date 10 December 2009, exactly 16 years before today.
Yes.
So someone who's turned 16 today.
Yes.
And I named myself Gabe Norris in honor of our new F1 champion. And used my new 4ZZZ email account that I've just been granted. So hopefully that doesn't cause any issues. Because I wanted to use a clean email that didn't have any existing. I was trying to avoid giving any info that could have been used to verify my age by, age of a device or age of a login or age of an email address or anything like that. I don't think they're using any of that, but it could be used. On Facebook, it made me go to my phone to create a new account when I tried the 16 thing today. I tried the 16-year-old age, which is presumably to do the Face ID from that point.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let me just go back one step and just change it to 2000, and it just let me make an account, and that was fine.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, if you say you're 25, you can just make a new Facebook account. And then I tried Instagram. I used that same Facebook account to make it. Again, I put in that 2000 birth date, so 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Instantly had a new account. There was nothing about age verification. I'm pretty sure all of these platforms, if you put in an older birth date, they will then be doing some sort of monitoring, at least of like what you're posting, and doing maybe age reads of your face as you post them
to see if it correlates with
how you're acting, to see if they have a suspicion that you might be under 16, and then they might force an age verification on you in the future. So I couldn't do any of that testing this morning. But yeah, I could open a Facebook account and Instagram account with I put in a birth date that was 16. It said go to the phone,
and look up
probably
6'7".
do the Face ID. I just changed it to an old look up 6'7". I just changed it to an older date, and it just let me in. And I very quickly the worst bit was I put that 2000 thing into Instagram. I pressed create account. The first thing it gave me was recommended people to follow, and the top one on the list was an OnlyFans creator. Very popular one.
Okay.
So I thought that was, and I did give it a 25-year-old birth date at that point.
Yeah.
But I thought that was an interesting first step from the algorithm to hit with that. And I was on incognito mode, so this is not reflecting on me.
Yes.
Hopefully. So I'd be interested to test that again for if I told I was 17 or 18 and see what it did then. Reddit immediately let me in with a birthday saying 16 today.
Right.
But then the accounts had some errors and wasn't letting me log back in. So they had weird stuff going on with their accounts. I think a lot of them have paused their desktop-based sign-ups for any potential under 16 account and are just pushing it to the app, and some of that software is still rolling out.
Yeah.
But like I said, you can just scroll Reddit without a login, so that's not banned. On X was where it got really weird. I put in that birth date of turning 16 today.
Yeah.
It errored out and just didn't direct me anywhere, it just errored. So I tried again with the birth date set to 2000, 25 years ago. Immediately in, and you have to put in one interest and one follow before you can start using it. So I put in science as the interest and NASA as the follow.
Right.
Thought that was as clean as I could possibly be on this new account. Within seconds, got multiple posts that were inarguably heavily right-wing politically.
Okay.
And then I edited the age of that account within minutes of opening it to be 14, and the feed instantly had heavily sexualized content when I refreshed it.
Okay.
Not nudity, but flat out stuff that is not okay to be on the feed of someone who's clicked 14 as the birth date, which I thought was just wild. And the test stopped being fun at that point. So nothing age verification wise. Like I told X this morning, this account's 14, and it didn't prompt anything.
Yeah.
It could change over time. Maybe they run it every day as their check, and then it prompts the notification. But that was a bit of a red flag. And YouTube, I couldn't test properly because I didn't have a non-Google account that had history to check it. But again, you can use YouTube without an account. Snapchat, I had to download the app on the computer, which I think makes me the first ever user of the Snapchat desktop app. And when I tried to use the exactly 16-year-old's birth date, it had a thing come up that said, "We're sorry to share that new local laws have placed restrictions on users under 16 accessing Snapchat. Go to the Snapchat app on your mobile for more details." And it pushed you to mobile.
Yeah.
I said I just changed the birth date to 2000 and it immediately let me in.
Yeah.
So that's just account creation. And those are the only ones I tested. There are obviously more on the list. And I'm sure more stuff will be added, especially ongoing usership, not just the birth date that gets put in account creation. But it seems, especially for accounts that don't require posting anything visual for most users, like something that would be easily used to identify you as under 16, like X, Reddit, possibly YouTube. Most people don't post on those apps when they're using them. You might just be able to create a new account with an older age and get around this. Like it doesn't seem like it's going to be that high of a barrier for most under 16-year-olds in the 21st
digital
century.
natives, as we call them.
Exactly right. So I would love to hear from anyone who is under 16 who's tried just changing their birth date on some of these apps. I know I've heard people using others around them to do the Face ID, but I'd be curious to see what happens if you just try and change your birth date and see what gets flagged, especially if you did it before today. But regardless, though, it seems like this ban is going to be pretty easy to get around for most digital natives under 16. But I'm not necessarily saying that's the wrong thing to do either, because the alternatives would potentially involve stuff like verifying against a MyGov record or uploading a birth certificate or a passport or something or other government ID into these apps to do the verification, which I don't think anyone really wants as a solution, at least not now. That doesn't feel like the systems are set up to do that in a way that people would be comfortable with. So, it doesn't seem like it's much more than the original 13. Is it 13 that Meta put in as a barrier for when you have to put in a birth date that's older than 13 to have an account, which was just based on some American stuff, and that was just a company decision to do that. It feels like this is one notch just higher than that for the 16 ban. But it'll be curious to see what effects it has. It does raise the hurdle. It probably will get people using it at least differently. and hopefully reduce, even if people are scrolling without logins, maybe reduce the impact of this algorithm-controlled feed, and go back to a bit of, selecting your own feed and just seeing what's popular with everyone, not stuff that's targeted at you. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out over time. And if you do have any experience with this, if you've tried getting around it, if you have played around with the ages and birth dates and stuff, very curious to see how it plays out today on day one, and also as we go into the future and things probably get added as these companies try and meet that requirement of reasonable steps to keep under 16s off accounts on their platforms. That's what I got.
Mr. Stalin texted in. They said, I was on Nauru when the government there blocked Facebook in about 2015. The entire population started using VPNs. Job fixed. Anyway, and we've got a lot of texts coming in. You want to...
We have been in a little early from David about that story on the Zoom glitches causing potential issues for people in things like job interviews and parole hearings. Wondering how many Zoom glitches on remand centres for prisoners, especially Youth Watch House. Yeah, really, like a really fascinating little insight into how these small things like a couple of glitches or freezes on Zoom could have big consequences for a lot of people in an increasingly digital, remote, world where we're doing video calls all the time for increasingly important things. Murray was texting in about the energy drink story, saying you see it all this time on construction sites. Angry tradies jacked up caffeine for early starts in the morning, often driving long distances. A lot of we're talking about a lot of the issues in the world, haven't we, Max? Yeah. Too many video calls, too many energy drinks, social media bans, the whole lot of it. But we should get into some space news to clear the air.
No idea. Space news. I'm going to talk about the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. It's NASA's next big eye on the cosmos and is now fully assembled. At the end of last month, technicians joined the inner and outer portions of the Space Telescope in the largest clean room at the agency's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. After final testing, Roman will move to a launch site at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida for launch preparations. It's slated for a launch in May 2027, but they're hoping for an earlier launch, say late 2026. A SpaceX Falcon Heavy will be used to launch it 1.6 million kilometres away from Earth. Okay, I'm titling this, Houston, we have a problem. Communications between Earth and NASA spacecraft were critically vulnerable to hacking for the last 3 years until an AI found the flaw and fixed it in just 4 days. The vulnerability was sniffed out by AI cybersecurity algorithm developed by Californian-based startup Isle and resides in the CryptoLib security software that protects spacecraft to ground communications. The vulnerability could have enabled hackers to seize control over countless space missions, including NASA's Mars rovers. The researchers said the vulnerability was found in the authentication system and could have been exploited through compromised operator credentials. Fortunately, to gain access to the spacecraft through the CryptoLib vulnerability would require that attackers to, at some point, have local access to the system, which pretty well reduces the attack vector. And Artemis 4, we're up to Artemis 1, aren't we? So Artemis 2 should fly next year, and then Artemis 4 eventually will hit the moon. NASA has selected 2 science...
Hit is an interesting choice of words, Max. I think there's meant to be people in that one.
Has selected 2 science instruments designed for astronauts to deploy on the surface of the moon during the Artemis 4 mission to the lunar South Pole. The instruments will improve our knowledge of the lunar environment to support NASA's further exploration of the moon and eventually Mars. One instrument, known as DUSTER, which stands for Dust and Plasma Environment Surveyor, will investigate moon dust levels, consisting of a set of instruments mounted on a small autonomous rover. DUSTER will measure dust and plasma around the landing site. These measurements will advance understanding of the moon's natural dust and plasma environments and how that environment responds to the human presence, including any disturbance during crew exploration activities and lander liftoff. The second instrument, known as SPSS, or South Pole Seismic Station, will enable scientists to measure the moon's interior structure along with the current rate at which the moon is subjected to meteorite impacts. It will also monitor the real-time seismic environment and how it can affect operations for astronauts and determine properties of the moon's deep interior. And this is the bit I love. The crew will additionally perform an active source experiment using a thumper that creates seismic energy to survey the shallow structure around the landing site. Job done. That's it for the space news this week.
Very cool.
You tune into 4ZZZ and the show is No Idea, but not for much longer. Sign us out, Gabe.
That is all we have time for on this show, the 677th show of No Idea, unbanned and brought to you thanks to all of the subscribers to 4ZZZ. You can join them at 4ZZZ.org.au, which is also where you can listen back to the full recording of this show with all the music as well as a bunch of our previous shows. The condensed version is available on your podcasting platform of choice to search No Idea 4ZZZ, No with a K. Thanks to Toby for editing that up. Thanks to you, Max, Issy, for your stories this week. We'll be back in your ears next week. Between now and then, keep your Zoom calls smooth, lay off the energy drinks and get excited for Artemis 4 to hit the moon in a question mark amount of years' time.
And we'll speak to you next week.
I'm a goddamn marvel of modern science.